Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. You could have chosen to spend your time anywhere. You rock with me today. Thank you. I never take that lightly. Before we get into it, let my beat drop. Yes, that's right. Welcome to Medicine Ball with your boy LS3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, at least your brain should be. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medicine Ball Podcast, where we focus on giving your brain a six-pack by exercising your mind. Now, exercising your mind means that you actively think about and deal with all situations by first seeking to do anything other than what you are normally programmed and or comfortable in doing. Now, if you're someone who struggles and wants to get better at thinking about things beforehand, as opposed to reacting in ways that require less effort, well, just like anything you want to get better at, it does require training, practice, and work. Now, I'm well aware that thinking about things beforehand as opposed to responding off instinct does require effort. And who doesn't prefer things that are easy? Well, the first step, my friends, can be very easy, and that's to begin to look at all things from an unbiased point of view, which in itself will increase your curiosity in life. Now, exercising your mind won't give you all the answers. You will, however, begin to look at things with more peace, understanding, and patience, while simultaneously equipping yourself with more tools and strategies to help you effectively deal with this thing called life. Now, before we go any further, I'm no doctor, no psychiatrist, no psychologist. I have, however, been diagnosed with bipolar disorder level 1 for 16 years. And to be honest, I got to a point in my life where I was looking at the person I was becoming versus the person I wanted to be. And that, among other things, required me to look at my mental health responsibly. So whether or not you're diagnosed or know someone who's diagnosed or have symptoms or just want to know more about it, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're one of the many people who could just use some tips, tricks, and different ideas to help you get through day-to-day life. Pull up a seat, kick up your feet. This is your family, man. Welcome home, no judgment zone. This week's episode 504, S.W.O.T. That's right, S.W.O.T. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. Bear with me. It's been a while, but as the seasons are changing, my voice tends to do this thing where it can get a little bit lower and more raspy than normal. So I ask that you guys bear with me. Real quick, I have now attached a subscription link in the description to my podcast. So season 1 and season 2, and I think I've been mentioning it all along, I'm pretty much removing them and requiring that you are subscribed to the subscription in order to be able to access that content. It's available on all platforms, but as I continue to work that and do my thing, expect those to start disappearing. Nothing happened to them, but I have to look for opportunities, of course, to try to, monetize this thing as well. YouTube, go check out my YouTube. I've been specializing more on shorts and things that have to do with Mamba at this time. But as I continue to record, you will see, and actually you should already be seeing on my Instagram, go follow and follow that as well, where I am uploading more video, where I'm giving you, words of encouragement, a little wisdom here and there. Merchandise, I have restocked it. I will have the inventory updated by the time you guys hear that, and it'll probably be updated again next week as I continue to get in more merchandise. I have been supported with that, so I appreciate you guys with that. Thank you. The Instagram is Medicine Ball LS3. Wisdom, where I kind of incorporate people to ask questions and I answer questions that people post. And you can also go and review and listen to some of the previous conversations that I've had on there in relation to mental health or, so forth and so on. If it helps you, that link is there as well. And pretty much Medicine Ball LS3 is going to be my tag for everything, as well as the website, www.medicineballls3.com. Go check that out. And I have actually been recorded some guided meditations, right? A lot of people are asking me about this mindfulness stuff and things that they can do. So I've been recording guided meditations, which I'm going to upload on YouTube. Probably going to upload them to the listening platforms as well. Medicine Ball is pretty much available on everything from Pandora to iHeartRadio, YouTube, Google Music, wherever you listen to it, it is available. That shouts out to y'all as I continue to build this thing, all right? Let's get into this week's episode 504. S.W.O.T. S.W.O.T. All right, so let's get into it. And I'm sorry, you all. I'm still learning this camera recording thing, and I've had this webcam for a minute. This is just a little side story for those of you who have been following me from the beginning and going through all this stuff with me. And I didn't know that you could go into the camera properties of the plug-in I mean, I know it sounds weird, but long story short, I'm sitting up here filming this joint and it keeps zooming in and following my face, and I'm going to click the setting and I'm like, yo, I'm putting it. Anyway, I figured it out. So all is good. Another attempt to continue to get y'all good video footage. So let's get right into this SWOT thing, right? So pause. If you are curious as to what SWOT could mean, and you're listening to this show and you didn't pause it to go Google it, or you're just wanting me to hurry up, or you're willing to listen to the whole show to figure that out, probably in the peanut gallery when it comes to medicine ball, right? So you can join the medicine ball gym, but initiative. So I always want to promote, especially as we're working on self-development, things that I do in the way that I think about things when it comes to, situations I'm in and what I'm listening to, et cetera, right? And that goes right into this because it is acronym. SWOT is an acronym, but that goes right into what I'm going to say next, right? Accountability, man. And I don't mean to laugh. And I kind of went to this last week with the Mr. Perfect. It's like, and I admit it, like a lot of times I know I can sound condescending, or I made an episode about this, relate myself to the Joker that was played by Joaquin Phoenix, where he was laughing inappropriately. He had to hand the card out because he would be laughing at the wrong time. It was a disease he had or whatever. But it's not that I'm picking on anybody, right? But it's just like, what I try to explain to people, and we're going to talk about this next week, there's levels of thinking, there's levels of analysis, knowledge, wisdom, wherever level you think you're at. And people is just on different levels, right? But we're going to talk about that next week. But what I tell people when I try to explain to them, like, what got me to where I am, or one of the main things is it's accountability. And I'm ultra hard on myself to the point where I'm very critical of myself. I always do evaluations of myself. I always go back and replay situations in my mind, situations where I could have done better. And I'm even able to, and as I'm telling these stories, y'all are going to see some of the stuff that has to do with this self-development to help not just me, but y'all as well. And I've actually went and researched, and God works in mysterious ways. But long story short, a lot of things that I already do are things that like business and Harvard and the New York Times has in these articles. But what I tell people is ultimately hard on myself. I replay situations. I hold myself accountable, and I'm trying to get better. And I realize as well that if you're a person and there's nothing wrong with this, right? I'm gonna have to have a lot of disclaimers for this episode, because like when you're trying to get better, you gotta realize there's some tough, hard conversations that you're gonna have to have about yourself, with yourself, and some things that you might not like about yourself that you're gonna have to acknowledge and kind of face head on, right? But my thing is, if you're a person who's not striving to be the best version of themselves, or develop yourself, or try to be the best version of you, and you're dating with or hanging or around somebody who is, two things are gonna happen, right? Number one, y'all probably not gonna be around each other long, right? And I'm trying to say this as politically as I can, all of this stuff, right? Number one, you're probably not gonna be around long. Number two, there's gonna be a lot of frustration, or what I really call like intellectual low self-esteem, right? So follow me. So accountability, as we get into this self-development thing, I need y'all to understand that, right? A lot of the reasons, that I do, maybe come off a certain way is because I'm hard on myself. And as we go into this episode, let's just get right into it. This is going to have to do with assessing yourself, right? But before we go into a self-assessment, I need to make another disclaimer, right? You have to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with yourself. It's like when you fill out, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like a specific example of something that's going to give you an answer based on your input, and you lying about it is supposed to help you, right? Like, say, for instance, I don't know, there is a diagnosis for superpowers, right? And you just go on there, I'm thinking about Divergent or something like that, and you just filling it out, or Christmas tree in it, and it's for you. So not taking it serious or lying about something isn't, when it comes to self-development and self-analysis, it's not going to help you. It's just like working out. Let me use that. Working out, right? If you working out and you are by yourself, like if you're supposed to do 15 and you do 8, like that hurts you. You see what I'm saying? So we have to understand that, because I believe the hardest part for most people with self-development is that it brings to light things about yourself that you may not like. Here's the good news though. You can change them. So as I continue to develop, I've spoken on the books that I'm reading. I talk a lot about patterns and habits and things of that nature that I'm researching. You have to have a fundamental belief that change is possible. It starts there before you can even start working on anything else. You got to have a fundamental, real, true belief that change is possible. So being honest with ourselves, right? And I'm laughing because it's just like, I'm more of a jokester. Okay, so let me say this. My father, people who know me personally, and even if you've listened to the podcast enough, you should know me and my dad. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, and I wouldn't even say it's a turbulent relationship as I mature, right? It's more so that it's just like, it's a real manly man relationship. But so what do I mean by that? It ain't no like open love in it. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I see people, I don't know, my dad's not gonna just get up tomorrow and be like, yo, I love you type action. It ain't that type of thing. He's very firm. And I believe I had spoken maybe last season about how like him trying to be, and I'll just call him an a-hole, right? Because he does, and I do get a piece of that for him, which is why I'm kind of giggling, and I want to give y'all some background into my character, right? But he could be an a-hole because he just gonna say like some of the meanest stuff, and it's not funny, but like in a way it is because he's older now. But anyway, the thing that I'm starting to realize is a lot of the things that I utilize when it comes to discipline, being accountable, something happening and not crying and whining about it, or getting out, as I tell people, get off the complaint train before everybody else, right? One thing that I can honestly say, and this is from somebody who's a Vietnam veteran and a sergeant who had a platoon, right? But one thing that I can honestly say is just like, that part of him I can't get away from, to where it's a lot of situations, especially being a coach, or like when I mentor people, where I can see stuff or I may say things and it's just like I say it so easily, like, oh yeah, that person's, well, yeah, you need to get away from them. And the reason I can is because of a lot of dealing with my father, and it's a good and a bad, because even the term I say, licking my wounds, right? Don't lick your wounds. I got that from something my father used to say all the time. So it's just like, it's good and bad, because it helped me as I could, and I'm still developing, get more resilience, get more discipline, understand that, bro, you fall on your face, the world gonna keep turning, right? So I get a lot of that from him. So I just want to preface that, because when we get into this being honest with yourself, a lot of times, and this is before I did the research and understood about like levels of thinking and what's actually happening in these situations where somebody's like, you're condescending, or why are you laughing, or so forth and so on, right? A lot of times people aren't honest with themselves. And here at Medicine Ball, we always talk about, not being mentally lazy, exercising your brain. And I want to pause and I want to go into that for a second. And I want to relate it to something spiritual. Because again, as I'm going through this episode, depending on what level you're on, you're going to be able to see, just even the way that I speak and develop through the episode, how I do things behind the scenes in my mind to make it easier for me. So like when it comes to certain situations, and let me just go back. So boom, like I said, I'm gonna relate it to something spiritual with the mental laziness, right? So the first thing is, from the spiritual aspect, even when I speak to people about that and spiritual warfare, the devil don't take no breaks. Evil don't take no breaks. You see what I'm saying? If you don't feel like praying or reading your scripture for the day, the devil's not gonna be like, oh nah, he ain't playing. You know what I'm saying? Just let it pass. It's that same way, and that's the same thing that I practice with myself and here at the show, when it comes to like, you can't be mentally lazy, right? You can't be mentally lazy, man. Ignoring somebody giving you a cue, or just, and let me go back. You can be mentally lazy, but you just got to be less mentally lazy than average, if that makes sense. It's between 30 to 60,000 thoughts and decisions that we make daily. You don't expect it to not be mentally lazy on some of them, but you better pick your spots. Timing is everything. I always say that. All right. So that's the spiritual thing. Let me relate it to the spiritual thing again as I go into this. And I'm harping on this being honest with yourself thing, because we're talking about self-development. And even when I help people, or, as a leader, or even at the job, I lead with question and I ask people like, do you think that you have a weakness? And if they say no, or if they say why you're asking that, I'm like, well, if you don't think that you have an opportunity, then it's nothing I can say. So the second spiritual thing, right? So let's talk about two things: reputation versus integrity. They're very synonymous, but they're not the same thing. Reputation is something that you can't like give yourself. It's what others bestow upon you based on what you're displaying. That's crucial. Based on what you're displaying to others, that's how they view you, the reputation. And that's just a loose definition, but follow me. Integrity, though, is what you do when no one's looking. We just went back to cheating yourself. So if you want to get better at, being patient, and you kind of have I don't know, an article or something you could go look at, and you just kind of skim over it and be like, yeah, I looked at it. Later to the spiritual thing again, I have devotionals that I do every day. And early on, when I was trying to get the habit down, I will be doing other things while the devotional's praying. So in my mind, I was like, yeah, I did it, but there goes this accountability thing. I knew that I could do it better, which I did, correct. Reputation and integrity, they're not the same thing. And it's real easy to confuse them. Just because somebody else thinks you're patient, or even with me, when people give me these compliments about, you're patient, you're disciplined, you're diligent, I take it with a grain of salt. And I also keep that with me when they're not looking, when they're not there. When I randomly clean up the whole kitchen, or vacuum, or sweep Mamba's hair coming up the steps, things of that nature. When I be like, yo, I'm gonna work out or really eat plant-based and things like there's nobody there to tell me to do that. Right? So your integrity is more important on a spiritual level and on a personal development level versus your reputation, because that could be clouded. There's a lot of people, most people will tell you people are very good at being actors and being fake. So you got to take, and really, even with that, as you learn to, get wiser, and from a spiritual aspect, get more discernment, and from a wisdom aspect and intellectual aspect, overstand as opposed to understand, you'll be able to see through a lot of these lower level tactics. But we're going to talk about the levels next week. But reputation versus integrity. When it comes to self-development, it ain't about reputation. I'm about to give a bar here and just coming off top of the head. You have to make sure that you have the right integrity in order to gain a true reputation. You have to make sure that you have the right integrity so that you're doing the right things when nobody's looking, when you think it don't count, right? You have to make sure that that's going on in order for the reputation bestowed upon you from other people to be true. We see it all the time with basketball players, man. I know, like Kevin Durant. I'm not going to get into how I feel about him, but I used to be a huge fan. I followed him from Texas. And it's just like up through OKC, Oklahoma City, from Texas, when I follow him up through Oklahoma City, I saw nothing that would display who he is now, right? Talking trash, the way he left OKC, the way he moved from gold. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like that reputation was bestowed upon him. And one thing that these athletes always say is like, you thought I was that. I never said I was that, right? So we got to understand, when you're doing being accountable and doing self-development, man, you got to focus on little things like that. Integrity. What are you doing when people aren't looking? Are you putting in the work? You know what I mean? And a lot of times, people are like, well, how did you get into mental? What do you do behind the scenes? Bro, I'm a nerd. I'm on Google. Well, how do you de-escalate something with someone who's had trauma? I'll be that deep with it. The world is at our fingertips. So let's go ahead and get on with this episode. SWOT. S.W.O.T. And it is a self-assessment. Strength, weaknesses, obstacles or opportunities, and threats. Right now, I want to say one more thing about being honest with yourself, because, and the reason I'm hard about it is it's not going to work if you aren't honest with yourself. So I want to go back into this honesty thing. There's some things that can happen when you're lying to yourself about your character or just situations in general. The first thing is that you will become a victim, and I know that's a trigger word, or a very highly flammable word. But the thing about it is, I'm real big here on Medicine Ball. Like, we got to start calling things what they are. if you're in a situation and you self-confess you can't do nothing about it, you see what I mean? So when you're not honest with yourself, or you don't want to face some of the characteristics that might not be advantageous to you head on, these things start happening, right? So you become a victim. You start self-sabotaging yourself, right? And let's talk about self-sabotage. Go Google it if you don't know what it means, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And the things that cause self-sabotage is negative self-talk, low self-esteem. And a lot of people, I think, can speak to the negative self-talk, but you have to, and that's why a lot of the things I speak to, you got to have a spiritual belief, because what I do is I challenge them against scripture. And then this is something else I always tell people I coach. I'm not going to get beat up by a thought or an idea or a theory or something that might happen. I'm not going to let that assault my mental place or assault my mind. And you shouldn't either. So here are some signs that you may need to work on accountability or might not be honest to yourself. I'm only going to give you 3, but it's like 10 of them, right? Number 1, you complain without action. Man, my father used to always be like, man, quit complaining, complain. I don't know if this is why, but it's just like, I feel him, bruh. Like, I really cannot stand complaining. And I get it. Things happen. Well, let me take this back. I understand complaining. It be that long-term complaining. Like, get off of the complain train. We get it. There's a issue. World is full of people who can come up with problems. World is full of problem identifiers, right? Be somebody who's solution-based. So the first thing is, if you complain without action, so let me go further on that. These are signs that you might not be honest with yourself and you might not be an accountable person. Complaining without action. Like, what you gonna do about it? I remember one time I was watching something where I was just or reading something where they were talking about psychology, and they were like, he dropped a pen on the ground. He was like, if I say pick up that pen, what are you going to do? Are you going to pick it up, or are you going to be like, oh man, can I pick the pen? No, you're going to bend down and pick it up. If something is written, goes back to this brutal honesty, right? And this is what I be telling people. They be like, oh, if something's really bothering you, like for real bothering you, you do something about it. So what I tell people sometimes, and it sounds harsh, is you got to decide if some of your obstacles and things that are quote unquote bothering you are really bothering you, or if they just a minor inconvenience. If a fly's flying in your face, you swat at it. Oh, it's bothering. Yeah, it's bothering you, but is it bothering you? It's just a minor inconvenience. Because when I get tired of flies flying around, I grab that fly swatter and I take care of it. And I'm just giving y'all a loose look at it, but like, we have to decide sometimes. It goes back to that victim mentality. Like, if something is really an issue for you or a minor inconvenience. All right. Number 2, and this one is something that I work on daily and that I identify, and this is a big one for a lot of people. You don't take criticism well. Or as I say to the people that I coach and lead, they be like, well, why is she so good? I've been here the same time as her. Why she is excelling? And I tell my team all the time, tell them like, yo, you want to know what the difference between you and her is? Her ability to take feedback. Bar. I be saying it like that because I got to say it professional, but it's really like, you think you know it already. That person there, and I'm not saying you just got to get stomped on, but if you don't know nothing, you can learn a lot more if you just take the feedback versus getting offended by it. Especially, and this is the other thing, I'm going to give y'all another one because it's going to hit home for some people. If it's something that you're hearing from other people a lot, this is the third thing, and this is just something that we're going to slide right into it. The same thing. For instance, if one person say that like, yo, you're a mean person, 2 people, if the last 10 people you dated said you a mean person, like when people do, I see people who be like, man, what's wrong with all these people? Man, it ain't no men to date in Georgia. It ain't no women to date in Georgia. All of them is horrible. Like, all of them? All of them is horrible, right? So those 3 things, man, and then we're going to get into the SWOT. Like, if you're complaining without action, if you don't take criticism well, And if multiple people are saying the same thing, you're too emotional. You're too sensitive. I spoke about this. People used to always be like, man, you're sensitive. And I used to get sensitive about them saying I'm sensitive. And now, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't care when people, but it's not going to get me upset. I'm like, yeah, I do know I'm sensitive. I'm working on it. Right? Because these are also our flaws and things that we can work on are also identifiers of being human. All right. So with no more, and let me give you some solutions. So I'm gonna give y'all 3 solutions for those 3 things that you have to look out for that may show that you're not accountable or that you're not being honest with yourself. One solution is, or one thing you can do, and there's like 10 of these too. Reflect on your life decisions. I come across a lot of people who I work with that ask me for help who are just mad at the world. And when I speak with them, root cause is they haven't forgave and they're mad at themselves and their decisions. You have to learn to live with your decisions and let that go. From a spiritual aspect, God can't use you if you're bitter or resentful. You're not going to learn the best or see the good in the situation if you're bitter or resentful. All of this is about mindset, being aware of your mindset and which situations, which in itself is just awareness, right? So I'm trying to give y'all hacks to do this mindful thing without going into the definition, but reflect on your life decisions. And that doesn't mean beat yourself up on them or nothing. Just like reflect on them joints. We have to start looking at stuff that's good and bad. This just goes back into like the mentality I said about people and their bank accounts. Like, yo, if you just went and bought $200 pair of shoes, you know what I'm saying? Just because you don't want to look at your bank account, that doesn't mean, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to mismanage money. And I'm somebody who used to be bad at that. When I make a purchase that I might regret, I immediately go look at my bank account and put it in my face. There's people who credit is bad. Like, there's no reason your credit should be bad for no 10 years based off a law. You feel me? There's people who just, I don't know my credit score. Nah, you don't want to look at it because that reflects you and you don't want to see that. All right. So number 2, piggybacking off of that, and these are things you can do to help combat a lack of self-accountability and a lack of self-honesty. Picture the future. Spiritual relation. Faith is hope in things that we have not seen, but we act as if they were true. So even with the future for yourself, if you don't want to take it to the spiritual, this goes back to what I said at the beginning. If you don't have a real belief that change can happen or that it's possible, you're hopeless. Picture the future, whatever you want it to be. It could be, what is the future? Like I always tell people, like one of the things that I did that I always thought was corny was journal. And at the end of this, I'm going to give y'all a bonus point of something I do in every one of my journal entries. But journal is neat. It's just a way to look at things that you normally won't think about. I challenge you. Just go get a piece of paper, 3 pieces of paper, write 1 piece of paper. What do you think the future would be like if you kept your same habits? Get 1 piece of paper and say, what do you think the future would be like if you improved your habits? And what would you think to do a 3rd piece? What do you think the future would be like if you were able to accomplish everything that you could? And just look at it. All right. Number 3, develop self-awareness. And I kind of gave y'all the hack of this, but if you're doing these things, it will help develop self-awareness, because sometimes it's simple as being like, yo, I do talk too much, or yo, I'm tripping in this situation, or you know what, let me pause, I am getting angry and it's not really a reason to. You just want to develop self-awareness. It's not about perfection, right? It's about progression, being the best version of yourself. So let's get into this SWOT acronym, and yeah, man, we're gonna keep it pushing with season 5. All right, so let's get into it, and I'm going to break them down in a way that you can kind of understand the points of these categories and how to get the most out of this, right? So you're going to wake, you could do a cross, you could do it however, but it's going to be 4 separate lists: strengths, weaknesses, right? Opportunities, and threats. All right. Now, the thing that I want us to understand is like, the strength and the weaknesses is going to be something that's internal, or internal thoughts, right? About yourself, whatever you think they are. And mind you, this is where the honesty comes in, because if you just be like, yo, I'm not good at, I don't know, listening, but I don't want to address that right now. So I'm just like, you're not gonna get the most out of it. It's gonna dilute the whole process, right? So strengths, right? So I would put here or characteristics or things that are advantageous to you. For me, I know that I can be charming and charismatic. So those were, and let's just stick to five, three if you're in the peanut gallery in each of these categories. Five is what we really should be shooting for, right? Okay, so characteristics and advantages, those are your strengths. The W, weaknesses, and these are internal. So for me, one of my weaknesses is, you know, whether or not I'm doing it to help someone, I can still be a better listener. I don't listen as well as I should, and I don't acknowledge the way that I should to people to let them know that I'm listening, right? So you want to put something in your weaknesses. Now, again, those two things are internal thoughts. And well, before I give y'all the other branch, let's go through the other two. The O is gonna be opportunities, right? These are things that you can, and I'm gonna use the word because that's what it is. And these are things that you can exploit for your advantage, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm a streaky person. I know that, you know, with me, I know that I like numbers. So I could just use that and it helps me branch off and do so many other things. So like fasting, learning languages, eating or whatever, but you have to kind of use one of your strengths to kind of piggyback on one of your opportunities. So if I said that one of my weaknesses, I'm sorry, on one of your weaknesses. So if I said one of my weaknesses is I need to listen better, maybe I could use the fact that I like streaks and maybe try to have 5 conversations where I don't hear the other party say, hey, you're not listening to me. And y'all get the idea, right? Life hacks, boom. In the last column, do 5. 3 if you're in the peanut gallery mentally because you're mentally lazy. No problem, we're going to get you there. Last category is threats. And these can be obstacles, adversity, or distractions. Now, this category here is the most important because things that go in this category, a majority of the time, are gonna force you to change something else in one of the other categories, right? But this could be your living situation. This could be somebody you're dating. This could be where you're spending your money. This could be where you're spending your time, or not looking at your credit score, not holding yourself accountable. These are things that are just like outside distractions, right? Things that are happening outside of your mind that's going to ultimately keep you from your main goal. So that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, again, strengths and weaknesses are internal. The opportunity and threats are external. And now I can go into the hack. When you tie your strengths together with your opportunities, you can go on offense with how you're doing things. So for instance, maybe it's a new business, right? Maybe it's a new area you want to move to. Maybe it's a new venture or something you want to do. When those two things are involved, you could be aggressive with the risk. And I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I'm trying to give you guys a hack. You could go on offense. You could be a little mentally lazy in them situations. When your weaknesses and your threats are coinciding, you got to be on defense. And what I mean by that is you got to be aware of what's going on, what the situation is, and what's at stake. You can't be mentally lazy in those situations, right? So what this is also going to help you do once you put this together and use the information I just gave you to kind of decipher it, it's going to help you to start building on triggers and situations that you know aren't advantageous to you. If you get off of work and you grumpy, and you know when you grumpy, you can't get the most out of any information you need, you might not want to pick that time to do your Bible study. You follow me? So it's going to get to that. Now, before I get up out of here, I'm going to give y'all one that I put in my journal every single day. And it's another acronym. It's easy. It makes more sense than SWOT, which is S.W.O.T. And it's MEAL, right? MEAL, MEAL. Mood, energy level, attitude / annoyance level, right? And love level. And what I do is I gauge myself every day more towards the end of the day or after some things have happened on where I'm at. And if it's below a 7, I write at least a sentence next to it at why. So if my mood is a 7, I don't know, I stubbed my toe this morning. Mamba went in the trash can 35 times. You know what I'm saying? If my annoyance level is high because Mamba went in the trash can, okay, maybe you might not want to bump heads or have no rough conversation with your dad. You know he's going to say something crazy to you. You feel me? If my love level is low, what can I do to get it up? All right. So I gave y'all 2, SWOT and meal. Again, that's mood, energy, annoyance slash attitude, whatever you want to call it, is just being aware of your agitation and love. So you can also use those, man. I always try to give y'all hacks. And I hate to say it, but writing things down, it works. It does something scientifically. So this has been episode 504 as we continue to work on self-development here at the Medicine Ball Podcast. Please excuse my voice. I'm going to get on the honey and hopefully I be able to be sounding clearer. I have those guided meditations coming. I did shoot this whole episode in video. So if I don't launch the whole podcast in video, there'll be snippets. And like, subscribe, share. Go to the website, join the Medicine Ball Gym. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Medicine Ball LS3. Follow Mamba, who I thought was going to come in while I was doing this, which is why I left the door open, but he's knocked out. Until next week, keep your head up, push forward. I love y'all. You got this. Yeah.